Hello, friends. Good morning. It is bright and early on this Wednesday for our Jam Play Wednesday LiveStream. And I'm excited to be with you. Our topic today is how do you practice? I've kind of given you a little clue that I have a way that I do this. And it's what comes from the questions that come from my students on a regular basis. Because, yes, I want to do this. I want to get better at it. But it seems like there's just so much to do. How do I know what I need to do to get better at it? So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's conversation. If you are watching on the front of the Dulcimer Crossing web page, there is no way for you to be involved in the conversation on the front, but you can sure watch it. It's perfectly fine to watch it there. And I need to turn down my headphones so I don't get the back feed thing here. But if you click on the link to see it, you can watch it in Vimeo, which is where this live stream is coming from. And then you can be part of the chat, which is here. And you can ask questions, you can respond, and things like that. Hi, Doug. How are you today? If you're watching on Facebook, it is also possible to ask your questions there, introduce yourself, and I will be glad to respond. There we go. I just have to keep my eyes open to the places where everything is. So, there are so many parts of music that it can be difficult to figure out what do I do first when it's time to practice. And the first thing I want to say is that practice is not rehearsal. I say this to the people in my orchestras. We practice at home. We come together to rehearse. We work on the piece. We learn the piece. We figure out where it goes in our fingers on the instrument. We may have to go back before that and say, what does it do musically? First off, now, where does it go on our instrument? How do our fingers or our hammers or our pick, whatever we're using to create the tones, how does that happen? And then what comes first, what comes next, what comes after that, and how do we get there? What's the best way to get from here to there? That's all a piece of the musical process of learning a piece of music. And that's something that needs to be done in your practice time, which is something you do with your instrument. When you come together to play with other people, if you spend all your time learning your instrument or learning the piece with everybody else, when the goal of everybody else is to present something in the future, it's not going to be the most efficient use of the time. And right now, since we have so seldom a chance to get together, it's even more important that we use our private time for our practice time. And then we can rehearse when we come together. Rehearse is when we're putting all the pieces together. We've all worked on our pieces back there. Doug, you're saying practice has always been playing. I think the only piece I seriously practiced okay, you did 12 Days of Christmas a while back. Well, and I always remind people that we don't work music, we play music. But in order for us to enjoy it, I feel that I need to have to get some joy, I need not to be frustrated because I can't do what I'm trying to do. So that's the first thing, is to separate. Sometimes I've got enough tools in my belt that I can just come to it and I can play right off the bat. Other times I need to go figure out something. There's a roadblock that got in the way and try to figure out what's my way around that roadblock. So here's what I suggest. And this is, once again, if you like today's handout, there is a handout today. Write me at steve@owlmountainmusic.com. Oops, Dulcimer Crossing, sorry. kind of weird that I need to type stuff like that in two different places, but it's the way it is. So how do you organize your practice? How often do you practice? Um, with our lives in the typical pre-quarantine time, we have, we have work obligations. We have, if you're part of a church and you're doing music for that, you have that preparation to do. If you have a family and people who are depending upon you, you need to spend time doing that. And sometimes your musical time gets moved to the lower in the process. And so we have trouble carving out the space for that. And sometimes we try to okay, it's my day off. I'm going to play for 4 hours today. But if you haven't been playing, if you're touching your instrument and you need calluses to do it, you've taken 6 days to undo your calluses and you're going to try to get them all back in one. It's going to be very painful, number one. And your fingers are not going to remember what they're supposed to do. The way the brain works is it hard codes things we do a lot of. So think about when you first tried to eat some soup. If you can't remember, I bet there's somebody in your family that did. It's a very, if you're programming a robotic arm to do this, it's a lot of angles and it's a lot of measurements and things. Can't tip, it's pitch, roll, and yaw. It's like being in space. You've got to do all these things. You end up with a lot of soup on your lap and all over your face. Now I can talk and eat soup and I'm not thinking about all those things. Why is that? I practiced. I did it a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. I corrected the mistakes and I cleaned up my messes after I got done. And then I made it just became that kind of thing that I didn't have to think about all the time anymore. And that's what we're aiming for with practice. We want to take it out of the conscious mind that I've got to do this and focus my attention on that, because we want it to become automatic. And the only way the brain does this is if we do it a lot. So muscle memory is actually the creation of new neural connections in the brain. Okay, Francis, I'm glad you can stop by. That you can watch the replay, of course. It's good to have you here. So as I do something more and more, I have to focus my attention on it. I'm clumsy. It's difficult. It's frustrating. And my brain says, well, this is just dallying. You're not really doing this. You don't really care. But this is the conversation going on in my brain. Your brain may be much nicer to you than mine is. But as I do it more, the brain says, whoa, you're spending a lot of time with this. I think I'm going to give you some storage space. And if I do the same activity over and over and over again, pretty soon that activity becomes something I don't have to think about. I just have to start it. And all the connections are there to make it happen again. But the only way your brain gets convinced that this is important is if you do it a lot. And you don't have to do a lot of 4-hour practice sessions. We rarely are able to do that. If we can do a lot of short practice sessions, that'll do us a whole lot more good for hard coding than one monster practice session. So in a busy time, when you might not be able to carve out much time for yourself, if you just did 30, if you just did 1 hour a day, that's a lot, it sounds like. But if you do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the middle of the day, 20 minutes at the end of the day, that's going to do you a lot better at the end of the week than if you take an 8-hour day and go all the way through and do nothing but play your music. It's also going to be better for your mental health. Okay, Doug, you've always said the dulcimer is the only instrument you dumped into the deep end and been barely treading water ever since. Aha. So I think I mentioned this to you the other day, but if not, hammer dulcimer was the most accessible instrument and the first one that I was able to pick up, or I built. I bought the kit, built it, and a week later I played in church. I will not say it was a good performance. And I don't know if there's any witnesses to say that it was or wasn't. I just know we were having a party for Valentine's Day, and so I did that. But it was because I couldn't not do it. I was in one of those sensitive periods. Maria Montessori talks about this with childhood education, that we get in a sensitive period. We can't do anything but this. We have this hunger in us. And I always say that I wanna is more important than anything else, that I want to do it. And when I got my dulcimer and put the pieces all together, in fact, I was reminded last week that the whole time I was building it, I was listening to Willie Nelson's Stardust album, you know, the Weird Memories. I had it on cassette, and I kept playing it over, turning it over, turning it over, turning it over. That's all the while I was building my hammer dulcimer in my 6th-floor apartment in Denver. So I built it, and I put it on I was in a 2-bedroom apartment, 6th floor, and I put it on the table that was in the kitchen or the dining / living room. And every time I walked by, I saw it. It's like, oh, the dulcimer. And I'd pick up my hammers and I'd start playing. Now, when I first woke up in the morning, that was what I saw and played. And then I was going, oh, I forgot. I'm in the middle of playing. Oh, I forgot I was supposed to have some breakfast. So then I went and got my breakfast and came back. I was like, dulcimer. So I'd play some more. It's like, I forgot I was going to go to the bathroom. So I'd go to the bathroom. I come back, oh, dulcimer. And I go, oh, I'm supposed to take a shower. And I go take my shower. Oh, I'm supposed to go to work. I put it in the center of my life, and it grabbed my attention, and I played a lot. Short periods, but a lot. And in that time, I was also frustrated because I was trying to understand how it worked. I wasn't accurate. There were a lot of things that were there, but I was so drawn to it. It's like the music pulled my hands to it and pulled the music right out of my hammers. Sometimes my hammers, I was trying to direct them, and they were going in all the wrong places, and the music had to be very patient with me. But what I did was, in a lot of these short things, all of a sudden some things started being more, didn't require as much concentration. And then I realized I was in the hammering world. I was getting way too many hits. I was getting bounces and things that I wasn't aiming for. I was trying to get one hit. So I created some exercises, because for me, that's the way I do it. If it's something I know I need to do, if I'm having problems with it, I create an exercise out of it. If there's a piece of music that's difficult and there's one part of it that's difficult, I turn that into my exercise. And that's actually the old, their French name is étude, the study. I did not know when I was growing, I didn't know any French, so I didn't know that étude meant study. I thought it was the title of something like sonatina or something like that. Sonatina is a form. A sonata is a form. A rondo is a form. A bagatelle is a form. An etude is an exercise. It's a study of something, and it uses forms. But I would end up turning these into etudes that I would then play over and over again. And the best ones were the ones that actually came out of songs I wanted to learn, because as I did those, they became the building blocks that I could use in the next thing. And I could transfer what I learned here to something else. So breaking it up into smaller pieces, doing it over and over again a lot, is the way that I ended up gaining confidence. And I think what's so important when we're playing music is confidence. Capacity building is the place I come from. I did church-based community organizing in both Denver, in Chicago and Denver and Kansas City. And in all of those places, people were used to looking at their whole world from a deficit standpoint. We don't have this. We don't have that. We are weak here. We don't. But when we turned our attention around to look at what do we have? What is our capacity? What can we build on that we have success with? Turns out a lot that we didn't realize we had. We were overlooking them, looking at all of our deficits. So when I'm working with students, I'm wanting them to look. Yes, we have our deficits, but I'm wanting them to look and focus their attention not on what's not working, but what is working, because I think that gives us a little more spring in our step to go into the next thing. Yeah, it also helps us identify what isn't, so then we know where to work on it, so it can become another asset for us. So what I settled on, and here I'm going to give you this link to my blog post, and this is what's in the handout as well. And this is a Dulcimer Crossing blog post. If you don't know about the Dulcimer Crossing blog, sign up so that you get the posts that come there. And that's the blog is a completely free thing. Dulcimer Crossing, of course, is a place where we provide filmed lessons, and it provides things like this so that you can have access to the learning and the knowledge you need whenever you need it. That's my commercial. For a very affordable subscription. Now, I have 5 fingers on my hand. I'm very lucky that I still have 5 fingers on my hand. If you've ever done work with your hands, you know that sometimes that can be a challenge. But what I do is this. Every time I get to my instrument, I tune up. This is one that some people overlook because they think they're in a hurry. And, well, I think I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to tune up. But I've realized by playing an instrument out of tune, it's not a happy experience. It makes me not want to play anymore. And when things are in tune, at the beginning of learning anything, the tuning up takes a lot of time. But as you do it more and more and more and more and more and more, that ends up being something that can be a very short thing. Even on a hammer dulcimer, it can be very efficient. The tools that we have available to us now, when I started, all I had was a pitch pipe or a tuning fork. And the pitch pipe I could blow out of tune too easily. I'd hit the pitchfork on my knee and then set it on the instrument. It would ring, and I could get one pitch from that. And then I'd get all my octaves, and then I'd get the fifths, and that would give me a new fifth, and I'd play a tuning game, I call it, which is so I think that's in the free stuff of the website. Let me just check and see if that's true. Under hammer dulcimer. The tuning game, yeah. Let me show you. It's a video exercise. Let me give that to you. And this was a non-linear way of learning where the notes were on the instrument. And it was by relationship. And it ended up helping me learn about the importance of playing in a horizontal way on the hammer dulcimer. Now, some of these things we're talking about right now are specific to the hammer dulcimer because I know Doug is a hammer dulcimer player. But those kinds of things transfer to other instruments as well. Any kind of way that you can figure out what's a back doorway, what's a side doorway, what's a front doorway of learning the same information. Sometimes you got to come in through the window. You got to break in to get the understanding. Fortunately, I have not, with music, had any alarms go off to tell me I shouldn't be here in this place. I've had notes that made me wonder about that. So I've had students who would tell me their dulcimer's out of tune because they have a family member tuning it for them. It's like every time we get together, you're paying me to tune your instrument. You're spending most of your lesson time tuning. And it's just not as satisfying. It is frustrating to not be able to do it yourself, but when we have the tools we have today with tuners, electronic tuners, and things that touch the instrument to pick up the sound without tuning the whole room, which we didn't used to have, that makes it a lot easier to do it and do it more efficiently and quickly. So whatever time I spend on tuning to begin with will become smaller and smaller, so that's not a big thing. A lot of hammer dulcimers, for example, are much more stable tuning-wise now than they were when I built mine because they've been designed to be more stable. Things would be wildly out of tune. But the instruments I've been able to come in contact with tend to have a couple of notes that are a little bit that need fine-tuning. Everything else is pretty steady. Even if the whole instrument moves out of tune, it tends to move together. Well, let's talk about that after we're done with this. What's difficult with the hammer dulcimers? Everyone has their own opinion about how to tune it. Let's talk about how they came to those opinions, etc., in a little bit. After tuning, I need to warm up. Now, what is your warm up? Warm up is anything, I believe, that helps you your hands remember and your brain remember, I'm playing music now. This is what I'm doing. I'm not typing. I'm not doing work on the computer. I'm not washing the dishes. I'm not sweeping the floor, cooking a meal. I'm not mowing the lawn. I am playing music. So, what are the things that help your hands, your brain, your settled soul know this is what we're doing now? For some, it's exercises, it's fingering exercises, it's a right hand exercise, it's hammering exercises. If you're playing a breath instrument, it's the breathing and holding long tones, and then playing scales and playing arpeggios. Those are all great warm ups. Another thing that they can be is something that used to be hard. So now let's go past warm ups. You've warmed up, your hands know what's going on, your brain is ready. Now, I encourage my students to play the hardest thing they're working on when they're freshest, because you've tuned up, you've warmed up, now you're fresh. Play the hard thing. What I used to do and what people tend to do is play the things they like. And they play them, they play them, they play them, they go, here's that hard thing. Oh, look at the time. And we don't have time for more practice. So they skip the hard thing, and then they're frustrated they're not making progress because they never give the hard thing their freshest attention. So do the thing that is hard, or do the part of the tune that is hard. Your warm-up can be the part that was easy. Do the part that's hard. That's going to kick your butt. After your butt is thoroughly kicked because you realize, I really don't have this, then go do something that used to be hard. And that can help. It's like, oh yeah, I remember when this was really hard and impossible and I couldn't do it. Now I can, okay, this is not the hard thing anymore. I got this new hard thing. It's pushed it out of the way. So now I can do the thing that used to be hard. Finally, then memorize something. So if you put something in your repertoire that's difficult and you get it so that it's not hard anymore, and then you're able to memorize it, guess what can become your warm-up? Whatever used to be hard can move over into the warm-up position. And that's the thing. The thing that used to be hard now becomes the thing that's so ingrained in you. It's your warm-up. And that's what gets you going. Then you can pause and look back and say, wow, I remember when there was no way on God's green earth that I was going to be able to do this hard thing. But I've gone through my process, and now it is the thing that gets me started. And what that does is help me also build into my rhythm a well, it's a capacity building, but it's helping me trust my process. It's helped me realize that if I start here, I can move it to here, I can move it to here, and then it can come over here. So there can be some progression. Now, I don't know about you, but there are some things that still bedevil me that I think did when I started. So there's some things that remain hard and intractable after a long time. But while those things remain hard, there have been other things that were hard that went through this whole process. And so sometimes there are things that just, it's like trying to eat a potato you just dug out of the ground. You got the whole meal ready, but you didn't take time to bake that potato. It's going to be tough. So some things are like an unbaked potato on the plate, and you've got all this other food that's ready to go. This one's just going to have to cook for a while. And sometimes it has to sit on the back of the stove and simmer so that it gets soft and pliable, and so you can actually eat it and enjoy it, unless you like the crunch of a fresh potato and the starchiness. I won't deny that sometimes that's refreshing. Talks about this as a way of reminding. Now, I picked the 5-finger method because we have these 5 fingers as a way to remind ourselves. Why are we doing, or what? How do we do this process? So that's what I encourage you to do in order to organize your practice, to work through your repertoire so that you are moving new things into it, and some things can retire too. The thing that doesn't happen in the same way since I moved to California. When I was in Colorado, There were a lot of people that were able to get to me for private lessons in person, and I did some long distance lessons. But when I moved to California, the majority of my lessons are long distance. They're using Zoom, and what makes it difficult is we can't get together to have a recital time. And I know that for some people, recital, play party sounds better, right? But the recital can be that thing that strikes fear into your heart. But here's the whole purpose of having a recital, which is another way to organize your practice. Have a place where you can share the music. You can focus, you have an end goal. I've got to get it. I've got to work on it. I'm sharing it. The other thing about the sharing time, the play party, the recital, is letting it go. Okay, I did it. I don't need to do it again unless I want to. As you've practiced, maybe Doug, as you're working on the 12 Days of Christmas, you might have gotten tired of 12 Days of Christmas way before the 12 days even got here. You might have gotten tired of that. But now Christmas is over. I don't need to do that song for a while. But the fact that you'll put all that energy in means that when you come back to it again, it's not brand new. So you can pick it up with some familiarity in the future. And sometimes it's like listening to pop music on the radio. You don't like it when you first hear it, or you go, wow, that's cool. And then they play it to death and you think, that old thing. And then it goes away. And then it comes back as a golden oldie and you think, oh, I remember loving this song. But you had to go through the process of learning, loving, despising, treasuring. That's the way we are. We have to do this. So in the handout that I have, I've given you these kinds of things. How often do you practice? How long you practice? What to play when you're practicing? So I don't have much more content than that today. I just want to, and I'd be willing to discuss and strategize about how you can work that into your life rhythm. So right now, let's get to Doug's question or the issue you raised. What's difficult about the hammer dulcimers, everyone has their own opinion about how to tune the instrument. Can you say some more about what you're hearing or what you're discovering is the process that works for you? And there is a time lag and the waiting for the typing thing that is a piece of this. Okay, some people say from the top down, others say from the bottom up, say from left to right, right to left, the same strings. Okay. So the point of the tuning game was to help me with one reference point, my A440 tuning fork, tune, and it helped me find, this was not, I'm going to tune up as an efficiency thing. It was my tune up as my practice. So I would tune that one pitch and that would give me the other ones. And I started to learn, oh, here's where all my A's are. And on the other side of this A was an E. Now I could go, oh, I could find all the E's. Now I know where the E's are in a nonlinear way. And every E, this E would give me, this E would give me that E, the octave, or the same E, and that would give me a B, and that gives me, the B gives me an F sharp, the F sharp gives me a C sharp. It starts to cover the whole board. There was only one note, the B flat, that I couldn't get that way because of the size of my instrument. So that taught me a nonlinear way of tuning. And what I would do is tune one string and then tune the other to it. Now, my first instrument had my first two instruments had 3-string courses. So getting all three to be in the same tune together took a lot longer. Actually, in the Dutch hop tradition in Northern Colorado, 4-string courses were normal. I met a guy from the Ukrainian tradition from Edmonton, Canada. He had 5 strings on his dulcimer. And I said, oh my goodness, we say 2 is difficult, 3 is hard, 4 takes an act of God. What does 5 take? And he smiled and said 45 minutes. So here's what I do. And it became the way I did it because I would go to play my lunchtime gig. So I had, I'm going to type it in because it just feels good to remember it. Deja vu. It's no longer there. It's got a, whether coffee house is there, but it's not Deja Vu anymore. But in Fort Collins, Colorado, somebody at one of the open mics I was playing at in town said, I think you go see Nancy at Deja Vu. She likes to have music, and I'll bet she'd like to hear you. So I asked her if I could audition. And she said, sure. So I brought my dulcimers and my guitar in and auditioned, and I would play Friday night gigs and Saturday night periodically. And then she approached me and said, I'd like you to play for lunch because I'd like to have some music in the middle of the day. I said, she had a tiny place. There were only 23 seats. You know, it was a tiny place, but she said, and we worked out an arrangement that worked for me. And for 10 years, every Wednesday that I was in town, I played lunch at Deja Vu. Now, it also meant that I had to drag my stuff in and set it up in front of everybody who was eating their lunch, who wanted to hear some music and play. And I had to do it efficiently. So, and Nancy said, I have to take one table away for you to set up. And so you can only bring one instrument a week. It's like, okay. Normally I would bring at least one mountain dulcimer, hammer dulcimer, and a guitar, and I'd rotate through them for my gigs. And in this case, 1 week would be hammered, 1 week would be mountain, 1 week would be guitar, and then I'd start the rhythm over. The hammer dulcimer would come in one hand, and I'd have my collapsible stand in the other. I'd open it up, I'd unzip, put the hammer dulcimer on, put the case behind me where I was sitting by the window, and then I'd tune up. And in order for this process to go as quick as possible, I'd tune the bottom right side. And I'd tune one, I'd make the other one match it, and go all the way up the bass bridge. And I'd come down the left side of the treble. And then I'd test everything. And I found I could do that pretty efficiently and accurately in the end in 10 to 12 minutes. Now, that's not where it was when I started, but because I did that, that meant every time I sat down to practice, it was not hard to do that too. And that meant that all the extraneous confusions that were around in my life it also taught me to focus. And that was something I was having a problem doing when I was performing. People would want to ask me questions, and I did learn to be able to give short one-word answers while I was tuning. Having an electronic tuner that was connected to the instrument and reading, giving me a visual readout of what's going on was very helpful. And my ear working also to say, okay, this says it's right, but it isn't. Now, there is this issue with the treble bridge because the same set of strings is on either side of the treble bridge, that it could be in tune on one side and out of tune on the other side. And the reason I tune the left side is because that's the side that the string, well, it depends on your instrument. Some instruments have all the tuning pegs on one side and hitch pins on the other. Others have them on both sides. The bass bridge is on the right side. The treble bridge is on the left side. You're going to have to know what your instrument is. But tuning this way, if it was fine on the one side and low on the other side, I could just lift up the pressure of the string and equalize it across the bridge. So there were some fine-tuning things like that I would do. But I think the important thing is if you find a way that works for you, that helped me. Looks like my stream is a little unstable today. Know where I was in the instrument better. If I would just go up on the bass and then come down on the treble. And then because I have a super bass, then I come back up on the super bass bridge. I've tried doing the super bass bridges and going down. My brain gets too confused when I'm jumping that far. They don't have a fifth relationship and things like that. So there was a little bit of trial and error for the way that was going to work for me, but that tends to be the way I do it now. Now, what I always do before I start tuning, however, is I play some in the boxes, all the boxes, all the way up and all the way down. And I'm kind of testing to see how the dulcimer do. Has it been dry? Has it been cold or hot? Has it been moist? I mean, has there been rain or something like that? Those are the three things. The two things: the moisture or dry, and the cold and hot are the things that affect the stability of the tuning in the instrument the most. And there are seasons of the year when everything goes really sharp because it swells up and gets tighter. That's when it's moist. And when it dries out, things can be a little flat. So you learn as you dance with this part, and you learn about where the feet are and how to stay off them. Okay. Well, are there any other questions we have on this topic? Number one. Number two, I'm collecting topics for the live streams in May. We have a lot of questions that come to us through the online form at Dulcimer Crossing. People have questions about things, and that's where I started with doing these live streams at the beginning of April. And we're going to continue with this in May and beyond. We'll see as things change in the world. We'll see how this works. The live stream is shared freely, and it gets broadcast on Dulcimer Crossing's Vimeo page, on the Facebook page, on the front of Dulcimer Crossing, and on our YouTube channel. So it's one place going to a lot of places, and there's a lot of places where you can find it. And then the replay on the Facebook page is there. It's also reserved on the Dulcimer Crossing site for premium members. Warming up. You're warming up. Do you mainly do scales or arpeggios, or maybe play a simple tune as well? So the answer is yes. So playing scales, if that's what I'm needing to do for my accuracy, or I just want to warm up, and it's yes, here we are. This is my D. Maybe I never play my A scale, so I'm going to play my A scale a lot. Okay, very good. I might be doing straight up box scales. I might be doing the modal scales we've talked about in other classes, Doug. Then what are the arpeggios that go with that? What are the arpeggios are built on the scale tones. So what are those, and how do I find those, and what patterns do I use? I'm thinking hammered now because that's where our focus has been, but it's the same on a guitar. It's the same on a mountain dulcimer. There are patterns that you can use. So I'm testing all those kinds of things out. But a simple tune as well. And remember what I said, what used to be hard becomes not as hard, becomes memorized, can become my warm-up. So there may be a tune that makes you feel good. This is one your mama sang to you. You are my sunshine. Oh, what a beautiful tune. My mama used to sing me that. So I play that as a way to warm myself up for the instrument because I love the sound. It brings me great memories. And all that gives me more confidence as I go into the new stuff. And as I'm doing some self-evaluation, I might say, okay, what I really need now is some hammering accuracy. For you, it's Red Wing. Okay. So that can be your go-to warm-up tune. That can also, when you take it out of your practice and go and play with other people, can be one of your jam tunes that you lead. Because you're playing it a lot. You have confidence with it. It also means something to you. And it's one that people tend to know. So it's in the Music Together when we have a song that covers 3 bases at once. That's a triple. That's a keeper. Well, friends, we have other things we're going to talk about in the future. I'll plan to be here again next week. It will be, I believe it's Cinco de Mayo, isn't it? Next week, next Friday? Nope, Cinco de Mayo is Tuesday. So it'll be the day after Cinco de Mayo. The other thing there's 3 things I want to let you know about. I got to go get them though. There's something cool happened today at 10 o'clock. And here is the web page where it's going to happen. Golden Acorn Music is a children's music studio down in Palo Alto, led by Matt Fernald, and he's doing a thing called Golden Acorn Live. And this is a show, and together we collaborated. I did some songs, he did some songs, we did some things together from our own studios, and then he wed them all together. And that's a fun thing. That today's show is a Celebrate Life. So at 10 a.m., the video goes live. It's a premiere. So that's happening today. The other thing is oops, and I want to put that over here. Can't spell. And you have a work meeting. Well, it will stay there, but that's when it releases. The Berkeley Dulcimer Gathering. Registration is open. And the deadline for registration is, there is an early bird deadline, May 1st, which is tomorrow. So if you register today, you'll save money. And then the Quarantine Festival is in June. These are all online. Oh, Friday, May 1st. Yeah, I guess April. What day is it? 29. I am way ahead of myself. Thank you. You have 2 days. And on Friday, the Quarantine Festival.com. Let's see, is that the right one? Let me get that up here, make sure it's correct. Dulcimer Festival. Quarantine Dulcimer Festival. Yes. Okay. Here we go. There it is. Registration opens for that on Friday. The Berkeley Dulcimer Gathering is a Mount Dulcimer focused event, and on Saturday, for the first time, I'm offering 2 hammer dulcimer master classes, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Sam Edelston is our headliner. He'll offer master classes on Sunday as well. That's May 15 through 17. The Quarantine Dulcimer Festival is June 5th through 7th. There are 30 instructors, lots of different workshops. Everything is happening via Zoom, and except for the concerts, which will be on the onlineconcertthing.com. I'll give you more details about that later. But we have some announcements and deadlines coming up, so I want to make sure you know about them. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for today. And it's good to be with you. Thanks for joining me, Doug. Good questions. And remember, if you want to hand out for today, write to me and I'll send that. And at steve@dulcimercrossing.com. And join me next week. And right now it's a secret what we're going to be talking about, but we'll find out about it soon enough. All right. Thanks, friends. Remember, we don't work music, we play music.